Good afternoon, Brian.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. This is the Energy Nexus taking place at the sideline of the Namibia International Energy Conference. We really are glad to have Recon Africa
Yes.
joining us. I am going to ask a few questions, and we hope that we could be able to have some great insights from you in terms of how do you see your company playing a role in
Wonderful.
Namibia. The first question is, at this year's conference, obviously the focus of the conference is the road to first oil beyond and beyond. How does Recon Africa's onshore discovery shape Namibia's progress along that journey?
Yeah, that's a great question. Recon's been in Namibia for a number of years now, and we've drilled 4 or 5 wells up in the northern part of the country. Late last year, we announced a discovery called Kavango West, where we encountered all phases of hydrocarbon, actually. So what that means for us is we are now embarking on a production test, which is going to be Namibia's first production test ever conducted. So, which means we're setting production liner in the wellbore, isolating all the reservoirs and testing them anywhere from 6 to 10 days each. We'll be on location for about 2 months for this. This will tell us a lot about the reservoir and how it can deliver hydrocarbons and what phase is going to deliver gas, liquids, or oil, which is very important. Very soon after that, we'll have all sites will be on FID. FID is a commercial declaration of field development, and we see ourselves potentially being there by this time next year. And why I say that quick of a timeline is that the onshore has a structural advantage of a few things I like a lot. One is cost structure. These wells that we drill cost about $12 million a piece. In deep water, they cost about $150 million a piece and take 4 months to drill. But also by virtue of being onshore, we don't have to deal with water. We have roads nearby, we have electrical lines nearby. So if we get to FID in the timeline that I think we're going to next year, then we'll be on the road to first production soon after that. And I believe if we're successful in what we have, that Namibia's first oil and gas production may very well come from the onshore.
This is so encouraging. And it means that we, in terms of the conference and the theme this year, we are so on point.
Yeah, yeah, it's a very timely conference. I think for a whole host of reasons. The finding hydrocarbons is a tough thing to do. Extracting hydrocarbons from this earth is one of the most difficult things to do on the earth. So, but we like where we are. We like the infrastructure in this region. We like the cost structure, and all those really line up for us to have a short cycle time to first production. And what production looks for us is an early production system, getting 2 or 4 wells on production and ramp it up to full field development.
Great. So just moving along from that point, and you did mention some of the consideration that you look into. There is a growing global attention, obviously, on environmental responsibility. So I just want to know, how is Recon Africa actually navigating this while you're advancing, your exploration, and you're giving us the timeline of when you're looking at having some of those coming up next year?
Yeah, it's a great question. We're onshore. Obviously, a lot of attention has been on the onshore. But the one thing that we have done very well and very proactively is had a very strong community engagement program. We're very invested in the communities. We have 20 people up in the Rundu area, and we spend a lot of time in the field talking to villagers, letting them know what's going on, how oil and gas practices occur. But we go beyond that. Our company's done some really unique things up in that part of the country. We worked with the government 4 or 5 years ago to identify 35 of the most needed villages up in that region for water. And what we found out is that many of the villages, the women had to walk 8 to 10 kilometers a day, twice a day, to the Kavango River for water. And the issue was just the hardship in doing that. But they were losing about 8 to 10 women a year to crocodile-human interface. So what we did with the government is we drilled 36 solar-powered water wells for the 36 most needy villages up in that part of the country. For the first time in their lives, they could turn on a faucet and get fresh water. So, that's a very powerful tool. And we did a survey about a year later and impacted almost 10,000 villagers. And if you ever want to touch your soul, go up into the area that's never had water before. And now they can turn on a faucet and get water. And that's a generational investment, by the way. It's the little kids running around the bare feet to the parents to the grandparents. And so that's a very proud thing that we are. And it shows sort of the DNA of our company. We take our involvement in the areas that we operate very seriously. We take the social license to operate very seriously.
And I think that speaks to what the president said this morning in terms of mutual beneficiation.
Yeah.
So what you are seeing the need on the ground
Yeah.
and making sure that you actually you help the community along, and it's not all about just exploration. It's finding a need and solving that need.
Exactly, and the way I look at a partnership in a country like Namibia is a business platform which really is stood up by three pillars. The first pillar is, of course, our shareholders, that we invest money, they need a return on their capital. The second pillar is the government of Namibia, to get production and cash flow and revenue into the country treasury to benefit the whole country. The third pillar is the people on the ground. And that's where we think we have a great impact, to make sure that people in the areas that we operate benefit. And I'd like to point one other thing about the ESG program. And I like talking about this because it's such a big part of what Recon does. We support 17 scholarships in country, 10 STEM, engineering and sciences, and then 7 nursing scholarships up in the Kavango region. And in fact, we just graduated our first nursing ladies last year. And boy, it's life-changing for them. And they stay in that region and become employed. And then in terms of the STEM students, we are graduating the first 4 this spring. And I got a chance to meet many of them. I was my last visit in Namibia, and they're a very bright, energetic, articulate young group of students that you should be very proud of.
No, that's amazing, because that's actually what's leading to my next question around partnerships. So you're already unpacking what you are doing in various ways in terms of how you are partnering with the local community, how you're partnering and making sure that people are at the center of what you're doing, which is amazing, because it then shows the value that you are bringing both as a company, as well as the value that you are getting from the people as well. So I would like to move to the point around local content. I mean, I think that has been central again in terms of the discussions and why we want to make sure that we do things differently in Namibia. Just understanding, it is actually quite a very, very critical conversation to have, not only for now, but in the long term as well. So how are you making sure that you are contributing? I think you have already mentioned some of the work that you're doing, whether it's with the nursing bursaries that you are doing, in terms of making sure that you contribute to the value through skills development, procurement, as well as local production. If you could just, again, just give us a little more details in terms of how is that actually working, especially since you've been in the country for such a long time.
Yeah, we've been in the country a long time, and I took over CEO 3 years ago, and we really changed how we're doing things. But I'll say a couple things, and I'll give you some detailed numbers. I'm very proud of our Namibian office here. We're 100% local content. We have 8 people here in Windhoek and 22 up in Rundu. And it's a very, very good staff. They're very engaged. They're in the field up in the Rundu area. They're very, very engaged with the communities. But to give you an idea, we drilled 5 or 6 wells over the last 5 years. We've employed over 2,200 people during that period of time of drilling. We've held over 2,500 stakeholder communication meetings in the field. So that's a lot of meetings. That's a lot of one-on-one meetings, a lot of discussions with the villagers. So, and that's just in the exploration phase. So we hope if we find something here and are here for the next 20 years, that those numbers will grow exponentially, and that's my goal. So that's that gives you a little bit of a landscape of how Recon operates. Now we're coming up on a big production test, and we do vendor selection, and two of the six major vendors are local content people doing nitrogen injection and stimulation work. So we will deploy our efforts to local content whenever we can.
I'm quite encouraged as somebody who's in the communication industry to hear that there is so much effort that is being placed
Yeah.
in engagement
Yeah.
with the local people.
Yeah.
But also hoping that those are the stories that we'll start hearing more
Yeah.
in terms of what organizations like yours are
Yeah.
doing on the ground. As we grow, we also bring others along. So kudos to you guys. May
Thank
you
you.
continue
Thank
to
you.
do
I'm
more
very
of
proud of
that.
that part of the
That's
business.
amazing.
Yeah.
That's really amazing. As we end our conversation, one last question is, with strong emphasis on inclusive growth, how is Recon Africa approaching community engagement and CSI to create meaningful impact? And I guess this is sort of like just tying everything that we have just said,
Yeah.
because I think with what you've just shared, it shows that community is at the heart of what
Yeah.
you're doing.
Yeah.
Community and people, and making sure overall that investment in mutual beneficiation is there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're not just here to find oil and produce it. We're here to accelerate prosperity, and that's part of our core theme in our company. Where we operate, we take it very seriously. It's very important that the communities we operate in benefit, and their lives are enriched by our presence there. And the numbers I walk through give you a little bit of insight in how we do that, because there is a lot of preemptive stuff you have to do. You have to be very leading edge on discussions to make sure everybody knows the oil and gas is new to these people, new to the country actually. So the communication and education, how we operate safely, how we respect the environment, how we respect the people in that environment. They get to know how we operate, and that's just really important to me, that they understand how we act as corporate citizens in your country. We're just visitors here. We're extracting your resources, and we want to really make sure we have a generational impact on our investments.
Amazing. You said you've been the CEO for the past 3 years. Is there anything that you want to share with us that I might not have asked you as
Yeah.
something that you really feel is important for us to know about your organization as a
Yeah.
parting shot?
I took over 3.5 years ago, and I'll say a couple things. One is I love coming to Namibia. I love this country. I love the people. It's a very inviting environment to come into. The government here is very open for investments, and there's a good legal system, good banking system, all those things we look at in terms of where we deploy our capital around the world. We want to have a big impact in your country. We want to accelerate prosperity and make lives better. So,
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time. We
thank
wish
you.
you all the best, and we
Wonderful.
hope to keep up with the updates as you continue to explore. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Exciting times here.
It is definitely. Thank you.
Thank you.